A man is about to sell his company for a fortune, and the first thing he does is throw away his jeans. Not because they're worn out, because they're the wrong jeans. He buys new ones, cut to look like the pair his buyer wears. He starts showing up to parties he used to skip. He follows his real opinions in meetings. And somewhere in all of that, quietly, the thing that made him start the company in the first place goes dark, like a pilot light blown out by a draft he never felt. He doesn't notice it leaving. That's the part to sit with. He couldn't feel himself being rewritten because the new wants felt exactly like his own. His name is Luke Burgess. The buyer was Zappos. The year was 2008. But this isn't really a story about him. It's a story about you, and about a quiet machine that has been running underneath your choices since before you could speak. Because here is the uncomfortable claim of the next 10 minutes. Most of the things you want, you did not choose to want. You caught them from people. And then you told yourself the want was yours all along. We like to picture desire as a straight line. There's you, and there's the thing, the car, the title, the person, the city, and a clean arrow of wanting running between them. As if you looked out at the world with your own eyes and your own appetite and simply decided. It is the most flattering story we tell about ourselves, that we are the authors of what we want. A French thinker named René Girard spent his life proving that picture is a lie. In novel after novel, the same machinery turned. The characters learned their desires by watching a model, then chased the object as a way of becoming that model. The great novelists Girard decided understood human longing better than any psychology of his day, because they were honest about the one thing the rest of us spend our whole lives denying. He put it plainly. We borrow our desires from others. Our wanting is not autonomous, it is provoked by the wanting of someone else. Girard called this mimetic desire, from mimesis, imitation. We learn what to want the same way. We learn a language by copying the people around us, long before we're old enough to question it. Watch a toddler in a room full of toys. There are a dozen identical ones scattered across the floor, untouched. The child reaches for the single toy in another child's hands. Not because that one is better, because it's wanted. The holding is the whole point. We never grow out of that. We just get better at hiding it. Girard had a name for that erasure. He called it the romantic lie, the myth that desire wells up from some pure inner spring, untouched by anyone else. Notice what the lie actually is. It isn't that we have no models, it's that we hide them. And that small act of hiding is exactly what keeps the whole machine running in the dark. Because a model you can't see is a model you can never question. It just sits there behind your eyes, choosing for you. Now, here is where it turns sharp and personal. Girard said there are two kinds of models, and the difference decides whether imitation stays harmless or turns to poison. The first he called external mediation. The model lives in a different world from you. A celebrity, a historical figure, a character in a book. You can want what they want and never once collide with them, because you'll never actually compete. Don Quixote worships a knight who isn't even real. They will never reach for the same woman, the same chair, the same parking space. The distance keeps it clean. Think about who actually gets under your skin. Not the billionaire on the screen. You don't truly envy him. He's too far away to be real. The one who irritates you is the peer. The former classmate doing slightly better. The colleague who got the title you wanted. The friend whose life looks like the one you were quietly promised. We tell ourselves we dislike these people for their flaws. The truth Girard exposes is harder to swallow. The people who irritate you most are often your secret models. You're close enough to copy them and close enough to lose to them. Envy is just admiration that refuses to say its own name. And this machine, which used to grind slowly between you and a handful of rivals in one village, has now been industrialized. There are people whose entire profession is to be your model. Advertising doesn't sell you a watch by describing the watch, it shows you someone you'd like to be, wanting the watch, and lets the wanting jump the gap to you. The influencer isn't really paid to use the product, they're paid to desire it convincingly. And social media did something Girard didn't quite live to see bloom. It took the safe, distant celebrity and dissolved the distance. Your models aren't on a far off pedestal anymore. They're in your hand. Peers you can measure yourself against minute by minute all day. External mediation collapsed into internal mediation at planetary scale. We are all each other's rivals now. Scrolling. Girard followed this engine all the way down into the dark. When enough people in a group desire the same things, rivalry doesn't stay contained. It spreads. It escalates until a community is quietly at war with itself. And historically, he argued, societies discharged that tension in one ugly, reliable way. They found a single person to blame. They turned the violence of all against all into the violence of all against one. The scapegoat unite the rivals by handing them a common victim, and for a while peace returns. We are very good at this. We have always been very good at this. Watch any pylon online and you are watching it happen in real time. So that's the machine laid bare. You learn to want by copying. You hide the copying to protect your pride. You compete hardest with the people you most resemble. And even winning rarely satisfies. Because you were never chasing the object. You were chasing a self you imagined the model already had. It's a bleak diagram of a human life. But one of Girard's students found something hopeful buried inside it. Peter Thiel sat in Girard's seminar at Stanford, then went off and built PayPal and watched his own employees stare at each other. The fights, he realized, came from people with nearly identical jobs, mirror images competing for the same scraps of status. His fix was almost absurdly simple. He gave each person one distinct role that was theirs alone. Restore difference, and the rivalry starves. Sameness was the fuel the whole time. That's the way out, and notice that it isn't to stop wanting. You can't. Desire is the engine of a life. A person who wants nothing isn't free, just numb. The freedom is something quieter. You don't have to keep being moved by models you never chose. You can turn around and finally look at the third point of your own triangle. Ask of anyone that burns in you, whose is this really? Who modeled it for me? And did I ever actually pick them? Some of your models you'll keep gladly. Some you'll quietly fire. And then, instead of catching your desires at random from whoever happens to be standing near you, you can choose them on purpose. Pick better models or want less deliberately. Either way, maybe for the first time, the wanting is finally yours. You are always going to want what others want. The only question is whether you ever turn around and see them